going to the name Ego Death Capital, we're going to move away from the current monetary system that we have in this world, from something that's like highly centralized, favors a few individuals, to something that's more decentralized, more secure, more equitable. It's really like an ego death experience of you're going to fight it. Like the current system or your mind is going to fight it. And once you let go, then there's this, you almost come to this euphoric type place.
I remember telling one of my larger investors, Christian Agemeyer, and he's a huge investor in psychedelics. And, we've been investing out of Samara Asset Group in asset managers in the Bitcoin and the crypto space. And I told him that I had met this guy from a group called Ego Death Capital. And he was like, oh, we have to meet him because he probably loves psychedelics. I thought that was really funny.
So one of the things that I find is like really, really interesting. So I had watched this talk with Paul Stamets, actually at like a Summit Series conversation, he's probably the leading like mushroom expert in the United States. And there's a certain amount of people that can get to this ego death experience through meditation. And supposedly like Jeff is one of them, which of course, like Jeff Booth is the person that doesn't require any PEDs to attain ego death. He's kind of in a higher functioning cognitive state than I feel like everybody else.
No, that's incredible. So how was it kind of through this journey that you ended up discovering crypto and Bitcoin? Or like how did this initial meeting with Jeff, this fundamental understanding from your years in private equity, knowing that there is something fundamentally broken in the monetary system, how did that lead you to discovering and finding Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I don't like, it wasn't my first time coming across like Bitcoin or looking at Bitcoin. I went to college in New York, in the city, and there used to be like Vice was a publication at that time period out of Brooklyn. That would write some like pretty out there articles. If there was a war, they'd put like a correspondent there on both sides. And pretty early on, like they had somebody that was writing about the Silk Road and the Armory. And like that was really my first instance of, in both settings, was you could go on the Silk Road and get delivered to you like any degree of drugs. And then on the Armory, they were delivering weapons somehow. And the what they were using was Bitcoin. And so like that was pretty fascinating. But at that time period, you had to send a check to Japan. And that was just like, it was too much of a lift for me. But I had like followed it. I would say that until really like sitting down with Jeff later on, did it make sense of like, hey, this is something that like my portfolio needs like a significant allocation into, and this is why. And this kind of clarifies like a lot of thoughts that I've had in the back of my brain for the past decade.
Makes a lot of sense. So I actually, just before you and I jumped on this recording together with Matt, the exact hour before, I was actually interviewing one of the directors of one of your companies, Joel Kai Lenz from Relay app.
Nice.
I understand that you guys at Ego Death are an investor there. So from that perspective, what is it that you guys look for? He says hi, by the way. But from that perspective, what is it that you guys look for in companies that are building in the Bitcoin space? Because obviously there are nuances, right? Like these are not typical startups the way that maybe you and I would think about them from a fintech or whatever perspective. There is a uniqueness to building a crypto company, and even more specifically, a Bitcoin focused company. So what is it that you guys look for in companies? What particular verticals have you excited that you're looking to deploy out of Ego Death to?
So we're predominantly, we're solely investing in tech companies that are building on top of Bitcoin. So we're fascinated with this like layered approach. We think that having that secure base layer is absolutely crucial. And then when you think about like tech companies, you could have something as, as simple is the wrong word, but straightforward, where like you understand it. Relay is a way to buy and sell, or buy predominantly Bitcoin, and in a non-custodial manner out of Switzerland. The company's Swiss, but we'll go across Europe. So it's interesting
that you say that, because he told me that they were actually looking at ways to not have the ability to sell on the platform. But in actuality, only 8% of all volume of transactions on Relay are Bitcoin sells.
Yeah.
And I guess as a regulated broker, you have to have buy and sell. There's no way they could have one without the other. But what he told me is they're thinking about having, whenever you click the sell button, there's going to be a thing that pops up. Are you sure? And it's going to be
Yeah.
Michael Saylor saying, thank you for your Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I just thought that was absolutely hilarious.
So like, it was one of the thoughts that we had internally, talking through with them too, was, life happens. Like people are going to have to sell their Bitcoin. But I
Of
thought
course.
like with the point of that, of like, if you felt like you were selling to another Bitcoiner, that I think would give a more of a degree of comfort. And however they figure out, they're really, really good, I would say, from like a messaging standpoint as a company.
Mm-hmm.
We've been really happy with their brand. But yes, I think River does a similar thing where there's like, don't do this. You do.
So I use River personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't onboard to Relay as an American. It's just too complicated for them from a tax perspective, reporting to the IRS. So I use River. I've never actually tried to sell on River, though. I don't sell Bitcoin. I'm going to go and try to put a fake order in and see what Alex has there waiting for me.
Yeah, he's got something for you. There's a nice little Easter egg. Yeah, he wants you to just to hold your Bitcoin. So we have something like that, like with Relay, and then we have things that are, I would say, key infrastructure with a Bitcoin dominated world of tomorrow. So something like that, like a Breeze, where Breeze provides key infrastructure within Lightning, and potentially other scaling technologies, plus software development kits that become like a foundational building block for a Bitcoin world of tomorrow. I would say because all the GPs, so we brought on Preston Pish and Lynn Alden as GPs for Fund 2, and all of the GPs have backgrounds of entrepreneurs. And I think this is really, really key from the standpoint of you understand the grit and struggle of like building a business and what it takes to build a business. And everybody's built businesses that cash flow to some degree or the other. And so from our standpoint, like the business is building in Bitcoin, like we're less, I would say, comfortable with having a business that's very, very abstract from a revenue standpoint. So we want to have businesses that are building on top of this tech stack, but they're solving a real world problem today. There's some degree of a moat between them and anybody else. There's probably an order of a magnitude separation between them and any other competitor. And there's a real way that this company can make money in the near term. So in the next, call it year and a half, 2 years, you believe the company can have at minimum of like a 1 to 2 million like top line revenue and the ability to grow from there. So one of the things, and we talked to this other entrepreneur last week about this, is we're uncomfortable looking at businesses where you are waiting for like the world outside of you to change. So if you're saying it's just like we need more adoption here, or I need the price to be here for my business to work out, like from an investment standpoint, that doesn't.
Or even more importantly, I need the regulation to change to X, Y, or Z compared to where it is today. Because I mean, I've gotten my ass bit on that multiple times. Hoping that regulation would change in investments that we've made and even companies that I've founded, but regulation moves awfully slow.
Regulation, or in Bitcoin, I think in the same type of like mental framework, like I need a covenant.
Right.
Well, if you need a covenant, like we might be years out, and that might never come. And so that component, we probably will sit back and say, let's get a little bit more data before we actually like decide to invest in said company. So just to summarize, we're looking for tech companies building on top of Bitcoin. They have a real world utility today. They're solving a real world problem today, and they have the ability to create, sustain a competitive moat and generate revenue.